You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
This is Randy. In the future, the very near future, you'll be able to tell what kind of work goes into the normal editing process of one of our episodes. Or they'll know when it's not there.
This is Jesse. In the future, there will be no public access cable, so it will never be Wayne's World. It will never be Party Time. It will never be excellent.
Welcome to the Grawlix podcast. This is episode 40-something.
3!
Oh, yes. 43. Sure. I think you're right.
Because last time it was the answer, the question to the everything.
You're right.
That's why I know.
43. And we're going to talk about some new TV and also some TV that you're probably tired of hearing people talk about. But we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. You're not really tired of it.
No, you love it.
Because, you were probably complaining about it before. Now you can just complain about us complaining about it.
Yeah. Oh, it adds a whole new level of complaints on top.
In fact, I want to complain about complaining about it.
That's meta. I'm excited for that, actually.
that's meta.
I mean, we could potentially complaining about pop culture without ever actually talking about the pop culture. That could be.
We're doing it right now.
That could be a whole show.
I mean, I think we're hypothetically doing it at this moment.
Yeah, you're right. And then we'll start a spin-off show, and it'll be people complaining about the people that do the thing that we're doing right now.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Roman Podcast should do that because they do it better than we would.
That's true. All right, just a heads up, everybody. And if I don't go back and re-record my In the Future, to clarify, this episode's going up relatively unedited. So it might be
It's further east.
Yeah.
It's Easter.
I was trying so hard to hold. I was trying to intentionally let your joke die. You were going to
insert cricket noises, weren't you?
I was going to let your joke die, but I couldn't do it. Yeah, we are recording this on Easter Sunday, the 16th, and it's going up. Tonight at midnight. It'll be up tomorrow. So, man.
But in order to find it, you're going to have to look through the grass, and one of the Easter eggs in your yard, yes, you listener, in your yard, has this podcast episode.
I mean, people come to us and said, that's a very unrealistic and odd distribution model for your podcast. And we said, we don't care. It's Easter.
They're right, but we're doing it.
We're doing it anyway.
Because it's party time. It's excellent.
Wow, it's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those.
You know, me.
I think Easter brings that out in you.
Well, I mean, there's so many egg puns. It's like, you just can't overlook it.
The holidays, yeah, I was going to say fertile, but that in itself isn't a pun. It's just like...
Ah, Christ. I went there.
How did you... Wow, that's actually an admirable pun. That's amazing. In-house news. I guess the only thing I got is I want to give a shout out. Anything. I mean, Jesse might have something. The only thing I got is I want to give a shout out to Roman Podcast, and I will do a video about this before too long, since I have a new webcam. And
yeah. Okay, I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
And Robert from Roman Podcast, who's been on the show, you can find him on Grawlix Bites number 9, I think. One of those. Just look for his name, Robert Cast, and he sent me a care package from Canada, and I was amazed when I opened this thing. So
he sent me a pic of it, like, I assume immediately.
Yeah. Well, I knew he was sending me something. I had no idea what it was. And then I finally get this package, and it's a flat package, and on the outside it had even written in a little box comic books, so I knew there's a comic in there. And I was also like, I bet that's some Captain Canuck, because I'd talked to him about it. He buys Captain Canuck. He's
it's a good comic.
I guess you could say famously proudly Canadian or something. Roman Podcast, they do not shy away from their Canadian roots. And
no.
So I suspected it was Captain Canuck. What I did not suspect is that
all of the pages are stuck together with maple syrup.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
That's weird.
I heard it's a Canadian only variant. That's how they come up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and it's printed on maple leaves.
Syrup to no good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's real. This is real life.
I might come out of this episode with an injury. That's brutal.
Yep.
No, for real though, he sent me an autographed copy, autographed by the author, the writer of the book. I was shocked. So that was very awesome.
Pretty rad.
And I appreciate it, Robert. If you're listening to this, I'll tag you on Twitter so you know to listen to it. And yeah, that's awesome. You guys should go listen to Roman Podcast.
You should.
Throw.com at the end of it, and you're there. RomanPodcast.com. I mean, that sounds like an advertise. Just send me a comic and I'll advertise your stuff. But for real, like, Robert is very, I guess, active in our little corner of the podcast community.
Yeah.
And he's on other shows, and, you know, he does a show he has involvement with a show about comic books on the GWW, is that Geeks Worldwide Network or something? Something like that. And anyway, he's very active, so search them out.
Yeah, I don't know. The only other thing I would say is that it was WrestleMania week not all that long ago. So, man, we have in-house wrestling podcast news. So, you know, hit up the network, and if you want your post-WrestleMania fix, we've got it covered.
Oh, there are so many episodes on the Electronic Media Collective podcast network. Not just wrestling episodes specifically about WrestleMania. There were non-wrestling podcasts were doing episodes about WrestleMania. So.
I believe it.
I did not watch, so we will likely not be doing that. But
yeah. Did you ever watch The Undertaker growing up?
Yeah, and I did see a bunch of stuff about like his final thing. His goodbye.
That's the main thing. And so, yeah. Everybody's going to weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Anybody that remembered him. So I get it.
Mm-hmm. You can, if you have WrestleMania things to say, Jesse, you can say them now. I won't hold it against you. Well,
I have to.
Do it. No, I'm serious.
No,
I'm serious.
I don't. But I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah. Undertaker, his last match. If that's his last match, that's fine. But it's sad. That's all I'll say.
Was it kind of rough? Because
it was a little rough. Okay. They asked him. It's clear that they wanted him to do it, and they had him come out and do it. And I think he did it. You know, like he gave it his best shot. But they put him up against like the young up and comer, which nobody likes. And yeah, and then they made him lose to that guy. And so that's going to be. If this is the Undertaker's last match, it may just be it may be the Undertaker's last WrestleMania match. I don't know, but he laid down his jacket and his hat in the ring, so that implies that was his last match.
But it's kind
of like anticlimactic. It's like, man, what a way to go out! Like
they had him be defeated.
They had him be defeated.
I didn't.
Yeah, for the second time. Yeah, they had him defeated once, and it went over so badly that they thought, when we have him go out, let's have him defeated again.
I didn't realize that was the case, man.
No, he had an undefeated WrestleMania streak, and at least for a really long time, and then he lost to Brock Lesnar. And then he was undefeated again. Like they continued his streak a little bit. And then, he lost in this most recent one. And then after he loses, he's passing the torch to this guy that nobody likes. And he takes off his gear, like his signature hat and coat. leaves it in the ring, and then walks out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was poignant. It was, but it was going to be poignant no matter when it happened. It's just kind of a shame that they left it like that.
That's pretty disappointing.
So that's what I have to say.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not going to be any different from anything that anybody else has probably already said. Probably better than me, but I'll just weigh in and say, yeah, me too. Hashtag me too.
Interesting.
Hashtag thank you, Taker. I just pulled this down, man.
No, well, all I know of WrestleMania is tweets, basically. I'm pretty sure that night I was on Twitter, as I am many nights, but
that's pretty much all people talk about on WrestleMania night is what's going on. Yeah.
And initial impressions seemed very negative. People seemed very bummed and upset, kind of angry or disappointed. And then after that, it just kind of turned into the tweets and posts turned into like nostalgic, Undertaker,
which they should. I think everybody just like got over that initial disappointment and realized, hey, we should just be celebrating this guy's awesome career.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
Anything else happening?
No, that's I was just like, if there is in-house news, that's it. That WrestleMania was a thing, and we have a lot of shows that talked about it.
Yeah, we certainly did, and they're all on electronicmediacollective.com.
Oh, full circle. There we go.
we it's fair, and it's the same things we talk about several episodes, often. But the beginning of our show is a lot of like random banter and promoting other podcasts and the network.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you actually have to skip that in order to get to the content of our show.
Yeah. The content is not my favorite part. I like the fluff. The content,
it's there.
It's there.
So we can come up with a clever title.
It's good stuff. It's good. It gives us direction, because if we didn't have direction, it'd be this for an hour.
Yeah. We come for this. You don't.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Iron Fist, or do you want to start with Doctor Who?
Should we, I don't know, do we go from new to old, or do we go from old to new?
I'm thinking new to old, since it's very rare that we get to talk about an episode this soon after aired.
Right.
So let's go ahead and do that then.
I literally watched it this morning.
Did you? I did manage to catch it last night. If it wasn't Easter, I'd have had more time. I probably would have watched it the second time just to like kind of pull. Yeah,
I was kind of thinking like I wish I had watched it a second time, because like the first time that I watch it, if I see an Easter egg, I'll go, "Whoa!" and I'll miss whatever happens next.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Easter eggs in this thing.
Yes, there were. So yeah, in case you don't know for some reason, Doctor Who season or our series, depending where you're at, 10.
Yep.
First episode was aired last night / yesterday, depending where you are in the world. Well, a couple days ago now.
The 15th.
And yeah, we didn't have any Doctor Who to watch last year, save for the Christmas special. So this is a long time coming.
Right.
And we got a new companion, and I guess first initial impressions. How'd you feel about this?
I don't know. It's hard to say, because like I'm just so thrilled that we have a new episode.
Sure.
That I think I was just gonna be happy. Period.
Okay.
But it wasn't. I don't think it was bad. So I mean, like that just makes me duly happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just generally I feel good that there is new Doctor Who.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, about just having a new Doctor Who, there's a chance that you're just going to be happy with that. That's kind of why I wish I'd have watched it a second time, but I legitimately enjoyed it. I think it was a pretty well put together episode. And I mean, we've got a new companion, and oftentimes when they have a new companion, it's like to use the comic book. I don't know if this is specifically comic book term, but it's very much a jumping on point.
Oh,
like,
sure.
This episode very much felt like a jumping on point for a new viewer or something.
Right.
But it's also, it's like when the series came back, like Modern Who altogether, we were introduced to the series through Rose. And, they do that once in a while with a companion to bring the viewer in with the companion so that you're kind of experiencing this being with the Doctor through their eyes. So it's kind of a focusing the series, at least for one episode, to introduce this companion.
Right. What do we think about the companion then?
I can't put my finger on why leading into this. Initially, seeing the teasers and the trailers for the series, and when they first announced her, I wasn't super thrilled, and I don't know why. I think maybe it was the little bits that we got to see. It was kind of her attitude or her shtick. I was concerned it was going to be a little bit of a somewhere in line with a Donna Noble type attitude.
Sure.
Which Donna Noble was okay.
Which I was going to say, I really like Donna Noble, so I was like, oh, this will be all right.
Well, okay, sure.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I mean, I think Donna Noble was a fun character, and they did good stuff. That was a good stretch of the modern series, but she's not my favorite companion. And I would not like to hang out with a person like Donna Noble.
Oh, no. No, I just liked her because she brought that classic feel back into the companion-doctor relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just they're just mates, and they're just trying to do the best they can and enjoy traveling time and space. And so, that's what I kind of like about this new character, Bill.
Bill,
the fictional name, yeah, Bill, is that she does feel like a Donna Noble a little bit, but she is definitely not just a Donna Noble archetype.
Yeah,
she is clearly her own thing.
Yeah, exactly. I did once we got into it, and it didn't even take long to get into it. That I was like, oh no, I do kind of enjoy this character so far. The bit it focuses pretty heavily on her, but from what we've seen in this episode, I did enjoy her character. I thought she's potentially interesting. It's a very unusual way to bring a companion into it, because it's almost like, even though later in the episode he says, he promised not to do this anymore, it's almost like he was kind of scouting for a new companion anyway.
Right, yeah. By taking on a tutor, or not a tutor, but a pupil.
Yeah, exactly. What was his goal if it was not to find a companion in that situation?
Right. And Holly was like, I think he was testing her. I mean, he left little things. He's not sloppy.
Yeah. Good point. Because he's very much that's a type of thing he would do.
There were little hints.
He knows the kind of traits to look for in a person that would make for a good companion. It's somebody who's observant and can jump to a logical conclusion when they see something
and not freak out when something strange happens.
What did you think of? I don't know. I was glad the Doctor was back. I enjoyed Peter Capaldi immensely. There were a couple scenes. True. He looked very tired. He looked rough. There was a couple scenes where his eyelids are just red and he looked just exhausted. So I wonder what that's about. I wonder if he was sick or long shoot or something, but he looked kind of rough in a couple of those scenes.
He had the wild hair, so I was just like, yes, wild hair. Punk rock Doctor. I'm so glad you're back. I'll even take that bald guy. No, whatever his name is.
Nardle.
Nardle.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
That's a name that he has.
I'm curious what kind of role he's going to play going forward. And I think we probably even talked about that a little bit when we talked about this most recent Christmas episode.
I think he's just gradually going to fall apart.
Yeah, you think so?
Well, that's how they start this episode, is with him kicking some kind of servo under the carpet or whatever. I don't know if that's the technical term, but some kind of a joint bolt thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the preview for the next week's episode, you didn't really see him at all, and it looked like it mostly the Doctor and Bill on this planet or whatever it was.
My prediction is he doesn't survive this season.
No.
He'll probably be gone. He might not even make it halfway through, but he won't be around for the regeneration.
No,
They'll have a new doctor with they'll have a new regeneration. The new doctor won't have a robot bald friend.
It's kind of interesting. He's almost playing a canine role. Like, he's an assistant. He's not necessarily going with the doctor everywhere he goes so that he's like a full-time companion.
He's like Alfred.
Yeah, he hangs around in the TARDIS and like he can obviously control stuff and handle the equipment, and he's smart. He just doesn't necessarily always go out and do all the crime fighting like in Alfred, you know?
Sure. Now, is he technically a robot, or is his head is human or alien or biological?
It's
personish.
Personish.
Is a person part is his head, and the rest is a robot, right? I mean, like, clearly he's part robot, but I think his head was normal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I believe. And they didn't even they had mentioned last episode that the doctor had made him a new body, but that didn't necessarily mean robot body. So now we get the definitive. It's definitely a robot body, and it's not holding together the best.
No. I mean, clearly the doctor's been around, has been in this location for a while.
Yeah.
Which was even kind of a funny little deal. It was like, oh, you mean that I don't look any older? No, that everybody, it was like just kind of a throwaway thing. Like, she ignored that part. Like, no, you look old, dude.
Yeah. There's certain things that reminds me of the whole deal with, and spoilers on this, by the way. We're going to talk spoilers on this episode. Apologies. I don't think we've totally spoiled it yet, but we will. When
that's a promise.
Bill finds pictures of we guarantee it. Bill finds pictures.
Well, I mean, you're about to right now, yeah.
Yeah. Of her mother in the closet or whatever, after saying that she hardly has any pictures of her, and then it's obviously revealed that the doctor took those pictures through time travel. She does
not call him out, though.
No, it's like she went there to call him out, got distracted by the rug, and then I don't remember what happens next. But I know she didn't get a chance to call him out on it, and I was, I was kind of expecting her to.
Yeah. But that's where she starts to be. That's where she begins to put everything together.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you said that this TARDIS or this call box, they had to crane it in. It was that heavy, and now my rug is underneath your TARDIS somehow. Mm-hmm. And then this photo thing, and I followed you into a creepy basement, and you're doing something with the door, and yeah.
I mean, it almost feels like those are loose plot threads that they didn't really get around to wrapping up. But I guess
I think that's the reason he's been there for so long, because they hint at the fact that he's been there for 50 years or something. And I'm thinking that this is their plot device to kind of anchor the doctor in a location, a la the Third Doctor. Like, oh, your TARDIS doesn't work. But rather than do that, there's a thing he's guarding.
It's a little bit like, which Doctor was it? This Seventh Doctor. I mean, it was for one adventure, but the Seventh Doctor going to that cemetery or something by Coal Hill, where there was something hidden in a coffin or something odd that supposedly is the reason
remembrance
the first
of
Doctor,
the Daleks. Yeah,
that was the reason the first Doctor was there to begin with, and
it was the hand of Omega.
Yeah. So maybe they're doing a little bit of something.
Oh, God. Oh no, not the hand of Omega.
We got Daleks, but we did not get the tank Dalek.
No. It was a special weapons Dalek.
Yeah.
But that was in the we last saw that in the Asylum of the Daleks. He was in there. But that was just an Easter egg. I mean,
yeah.
Speaking of Dalek Easter eggs.
Good segue.
That was totally an Easter egg, right? Did we see basically the Daleks? Is that what they jumped into?
Yeah.
Because were those Thals that he was just they were just blasting about?
I think so. And actually, I'd meant to do some research before the episode, but been busy all day. Yeah, I think so. I kind of wanted to go back and look at the old story, the old adventure, and see how they look because
the corridors were kind of hexagon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what I was thinking. It's like they just jumped into a Susan adventure after teasing Susan the whole time. Are we gonna see Susan?
How would that be? They'd have to be Susan's. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I'm glad they brought her back. They started bringing her up during when Matt Smith was still on the show a couple times towards the end of his being the Doctor. But that whole thing fascinates me because she was left on a
Earth
60s version of Earth that had been just fought off like a major Dalek takeover.
Yeah.
And that does not feel like the modern Earth that generally Doctor Who's on now. So where'd she go? What happened? Is that an alternate? It's one of those things. It's,
Sure. Yeah.
You can't.
Well, Carol Ann Ford she's still around. So I keep wondering if they bring back Susan, will it be Carol Ann Ford or will they have made her regenerate or will they recast it?
Oh, she could regenerate. She's a Time Lord.
Technically, couldn't she? I don't know how regeneration works for the Time Lords, if you have to go to the academy or if it's just an innate thing, or maybe she did go to the academy and he yanked her.
If River Song gets regeneration, Susan gets regeneration.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
River Song does not deserve regenerations. But he also had a picture of her up there.
And that was cute, though. It felt okay to have River and Susan next to each other, kind of bridging the two eras, I suppose, classic and modern. Kind of jumping around from the plot there.
Yeah.
Because the plot was in full swing at that point. So what do we think of the overarching story of this gal with the star in her eye and abyss? Was it abyss? Abyss level.
The abyss
CGI
water CGI.
That was the only thing where I kind of came out of it and I was like, man, Doctor Who loves to make creepy water stuff.
That's no kidding. That's no kidding. They have yeah.
Maybe they don't like the word moist. Call back to last episode.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. You're right though, because I almost felt like I enjoyed it. I like how it was handled. I like the whole thing with the puddle. I thought it was just kind of creepy. It had a cool creepy vibe to it. And I like when Doctor Who does something that seems supernatural, but of course it's Doctor Who, so it takes a sci-fi twist. I like that a lot when it works. But I did feel like another water enemy, another water creature. Water is definitely something that modern Who is hit on many times, it seems like.
Well, and I kept thinking, is this the Ice Warriors? Because it sounded like the Ice Warriors when they first stared down into it. And I was just like, oh my God, the first episode is Ice Warriors. And it's totally not.
Yeah.
Unless that's what the ship was an Ice Warriors ship.
Because they never really, again, we've already spoiled it stuff, but more spoilers. They never really just get into what the ship, who was piloting the actual ship that was there. It's just they were dealing with, as they called, a smart engine liquid of oil or something. So they're just dealing with a component of the ship, which could also time travel. That was weird.
That part was a little. I don't know if it was shark jumpy or shark jumpy.
It seemed like a stretch. It seemed like a stretch. They did it so they could establish to Bill, and in a way to the viewer, because that's how these episodes are handled, but to Bill time travel possibility and space travel.
Right.
But it felt weird. It's like, if that thing can instantly travel millions of years through time to the other side of the universe, what are you running? You can't get away from it. I don't know. It just seemed weird. And the impression you get through most of it is that it wants to leave. It wants to go somewhere. This puddle creature.
Right.
So then you're like, but it can go somewhere, go anywhere and everywhere. But they kind of they kind of do a twist around back on that and kind of fix it as to its motivations.
I did, and you like the fact that they did go to a different planet on the far end of the universe in the future. One thing that I did respect about that was that they actually attempted to make it look alien. It was like in the past, it's like, it does not matter where we go. It looks like a rock quarry. I'm like, come on, man. You're like, I love the classics too, but everything doesn't have to be shot in a rock quarry.
Mm-hmm. And this very well may have been shot in a rock quarry, but at least they did a bunch of matte painting and
they threw
CGI.
some filters on it.
Yeah, filters, some little sparklies and weird plants that it looked.
It might have been lazy, but at least it was an effort.
And it looked okay. It looked good. That's one. Yeah. That's another thing. I thought this episode looked pretty good. But the production of Doctor Who, the last several seasons, feels like consistently solid. It feels like they're actually putting some resources into it. And even though you don't get a lot of like, there's not a lot of big like action. Well, I guess you get the Dalek action stuff, but even just the stuff around the university looked good. I thought the set looked good, and the cinematography, the framing of the shots looked pretty good.
I like the idea of the Doctor being a professor. I mean, like, we've come full circle. He went from being called professor by Ace to actually being a professor now. So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and when he's up there giving a speech, you actually get to see a bit of one of his lectures, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. The Doctor likes to hear himself talk, and he has lots of knowledge.
He would be fascinating to listen to, yeah. So there would be people that sneak into his lectures just for the heck of it.
And he's not a professor of any certain thing. He's just whatever he wants to talk about. He goes up there and talks about it.
It was supposed to be quantum mechanics, and you talked about poetry. Well, they're the same thing. How? The rhymes.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I could see the Doctor, at least several incarnations of the Doctor being like, yeah, I'm going to hang out for a bit and do this professor thing. But he's also like there for a reason. They're kind of guarding something behind this vault or something. Right. Not to say they've been there that whole time for that reason, but...
Well, even when the Doctor can't remember who he is, he tends to go teach something, like in that with the family blood or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
The 10th Doctor episode is like, oh, I'm going to put my brain in a fob watch and be a professor.
Because that's
like you logical. Do.
Yep.
Just why wouldn't you do that?
It's a good way to spend a decade or so.
Yeah. And Rose, you should go work in the kitchen, and I will be a high school teacher. So. While I hang out with Sarah Jane, like you do. K9.
What did you think?
So
I don't. So this has very much become a thing in the series, and it has been for a long time. It's bigger on the inside moment, and they make a good deal of
really milked it this time.
Yeah, stringing it along, and then eventually like, oh, we got there.
If it was a word, like, I feel like this cast really gels pretty well.
Yeah.
Because if it were a different cast, I don't know if they could have pulled it off, but they pulled it off pretty well. I think it helped establish who Bill is as a character. It also helped to kind of establish Nardal's role a little bit. It's like, I feel like this is taking longer than normal. Wait, the Doctor said that to him. I don't know how it went down, but yeah, it felt good. It felt fun. And I even like the like when she meets him and she's like, "What do I call you?" "Oh, I'm the Doctor." "Doctor what?" Like it was like, credits. I was like, right at that point, I was like, I think I already like her.
Yeah.
Or at least where they're going with her. Yeah.
Nardal again. It's kind of the same impression I had after that Christmas special, that most recent Christmas special. I was worried from the Christmas special before that he was just going to be like a cheeseball comic relief character that was going to get real annoying. Not to say he won't get annoying, but the last episode
kind of spun him, haven't they?
Yeah,
they spun him from being that cheeseball to, okay, he's the straight man.
He really is. Like, he'll say some things that's like, kind of goofy or is the punchline of their situation. But he also like is the one that'll get real and say some like kind of like, oh, like heavy things.
He's generally playing it straight. And even that is like sometimes that's what's funny is the fact that he's playing it straight. But he's like, you really can be silly sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Like just like, okay, on the nose, but still it was like, that was kind of fun. For this character that is basically a head to call him out on his silliness.
Yeah. So what were you going to say? I guess before I jumped in on with more Nardole talk.
I have no idea.
Final thoughts, overall thoughts on this?
I'm so happy that it's back. I can't say whether or not this is a great episode, but I think it was a very good episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think I enjoyed it a lot, and there was so much in there, and there's so many little Easter eggs and things that like we kind of talked about in the pre-show. I wish I had watched this twice because the whole time I'm going, oh,
mm-hmm.
And I probably missed stuff, so I'm gonna have to watch it again, or maybe we talked about it right here. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely like to watch it again too. I did enjoy it. It felt like an introductory episode. And it very much was. And the monster creature itself didn't feel super original, but I think it was handled well for an introductory episode. And I think the monster had an interesting twist and motivation behind it that actually kind of tied into an emotional beat with Bill, which was kind of cool. Even though the connection between her and that other girl seemed a little loose, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was a good beginning to the new season without like feeling like it had to go just go crazy, go all over the place. A little bit like I want to say the first episode of last season that had I think Missy in it, and the Doctor wasn't even in it for a bit, and it was just that the tank episode where he comes in riding a tank, playing guitar.
Oh, yeah, that was the first episode of the season. Yeah,
where it just blows up. It just like comes flying through the wall, like huge, ridiculous, over the top. This is nice because it's not necessarily that. It's kind of low key.
Right. And I did like that the creature was kind of there to help establish maybe some of the diversity of the character. I mean, which made huge news. Like it's the main thing that anybody knew about this companion going in is that she is of a different, that she's not heteronormative, like she's got a different sexuality. And so they played into that. They addressed it right off the bat, but they didn't feel heavy handed or weird. She was just a character played well.
Yeah.
So
much so that I didn't even really think about it from that angle. Yeah.
Right. Well, I thought about it, but I thought about it in that way. It was like, oh, that was really well handled. That was really well done.
Yeah.
So, and I only thought about it after the fact. It never took me out of it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah. It should just. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you want to hear more thoughts on that, which episode? A little bit our Angela
Thor
episode and the
yeah.
Thor Goddess of Thunder episodes. A little bit on just. How to handle things without masquerade or without parading things. Which,
if if we're going to segue out of our Doctor Who talk, that's been a thing that's come up in the news where Marvel Comics had their big, their news conference or whatever, where they release all this stuff, and then they made the mistake of saying to the public that, well, we think that our numbers dipped because we tried to force feed diversity and people don't like it.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, people don't like how you handled that.
Yeah.
Because you did that poorly.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole thing.
Yeah. I know we're not the first to mention it, but it just seems like, okay, this is kind of a thing to talk about. Yeah.
That's a subject because, yeah, I don't even know how to touch that. Yeah, it ties into, well, it's things like if you want to have more women characters, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to start replacing your men characters with women versions of that man character.
Yeah. No, that doesn't help the problem.
No, exactly. So I don't know. That was my big beef. Otherwise, I mean, diversity is not a bad thing. I can't believe they let that get out, though.
That was like, whoa. Well, it was a whole week of PR faux pas, so that one felt like barely a blip, but but it was certainly a blip in the comics world. Where it's like, did you just say that out loud?
Yeah.
Because all the work you've tried to do, maybe poorly, you just undid by drawing way too much awkward attention to it.
All right. Yeah, man, I'm glad Doctor Who's back. To be honest, I had forgotten, like, this last couple of weeks leading up to it. I totally forgot until I seen people tweeting about it, like, coming up, and I was like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I hadn't bought my season pass for it until like the day before.
Oh yeah.
Usually like the Christmas special, I had that thing pre-ordered like as soon as it was available.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Capaldi's last season. I enjoy Capaldi. He's good.
Yeah, I'm worried. Like they showed in all the trailers his hand already starting that regenerative process. So it's like, what does that mean? Does that mean they've already started to shoot that scene? Does that mean that he's going to regenerate before the end of the season? Does that mean he'll regenerate basically in between the season finale and the Christmas special? What does this mean?
There was one shot in the like coming this season of like full body regeneration going on.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't catch that. There's a lot of things in there we could unpack, too. Mm-hmm. One of the things is the most exciting for me. For me, it's exciting.
Yeah?
Not everybody's going to love that, but...
Is it the master?
The very last scene, yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. I'm so excited. I could just talk about it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. The Master. Oh my God. Yes. We're going to get the Master and Missy. We're going to have the Masters.
Yeah. Both modern Masters.
That's awesome. I'm like, I might start crying. Well, I mean, like you think about it, in 50 years, we have had multi-Doctor stories since like the third Doctor on. You know, like the Three Doctors was probably the first time that we ever had a multi-Doctor scenario. But then every time that we had like a big anniversary, you could just about bet on it. And then we had little ones like the Two Doctors, you know, like little throwaway multi-Doctor adventures that probably didn't need to happen. And we've never in the 50 year run, 50 plus year run of the show, we've never seen the Master come in contact with himself. Now that's for pretty good reason, because a lot of times the Master, wasn't there to have multiple, like they didn't replace the Master quite the same way that they replaced the Doctor, in that the Doctor was still around. He just went on to do other things, the actor that played the Doctor. Whereas the Master, our first Master, Roger Delgado, was taken from us early in an accident. And so they replaced the Master way later with another character. And then he regenerates. And so we just never had cause to have a multi-master episode until now. Now we have multiple living Masters that would be so awesome. I mean, I'm not saying that they should throw Eric Roberts in there or anything, but let's get some multi-masters. Like, why wouldn't the Master why wouldn't he cheat the system? Like the Doctor does it begrudgingly. He's like, "What are you doing here?" But the Master, why wouldn't he cheat?
Yeah,
she or whatever incarnation we're dealing with. She is totally gonna cheat. That's his thing. He doesn't care. He's willing to create paradoxes so he can make the Toclafane take over the universe.
Yeah.
And stuff.
He tried to turn everyone on Earth into him. It would have been a lot of hms. So
oh my goodness.
I think he'd be all about it.
I actually repressed that.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that.
Well, so what we're talking about is it was released a week ago that John Sims is back.
Yeah.
As the Master. And we knew that Michelle Gomez
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That we knew that she was coming back. She had announced probably a month before that she was coming back. And so now there's the big question, is it going to be both of them? And it kind of sounds like it. That's the way that Stephen Moffat kind of made it sound like we had them staring each other down, which would be rad. So,
yeah. It seems like we were just talking about this not long ago too. In
we were,
Messages or
because I had just recently rewatched season 3 of the new series, and I was like, why haven't they done this? Why haven't they done this? John Sims, you know he wants a paycheck. What's he doing? Come on. He wants to come back as bad as Billy Piper does.
Oh, that's great. Oh, my.
Well, there's tons of characters that want to come back. Like John Barrowman wants to come back, and the only thing holding any of that back is the showrunners and the writers. Like,
yeah,
they're just kind of like, no, we're not going to do that. That'd be catering to the fans.
Yeah,
we have a vision. Sure, you do.
Yeah.
Your vision's hit or miss.
Hit or miss, and apparently just like fluctuates wildly on a whim.
Right.
Example, Clara, her entire history as a character.
Right, yeah. And then they just kept going with her. They tried to straighten that out, but they made her not die after she died, sort of.
Several times.
She died. I don't know. They ruined her from the beginning, and at least they were consistent.
Yeah.
They made her confusing when she came in. They made her confusing when she went out.
Consistently confusing.
Yeah, that's the one thing we'll say about her.
There's merit to consistent convolution.
Yeah. I didn't think she was a bad actress. I just think, what were they doing with that character?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was longer than we meant to spend on Doctor Who, probably, but
that's all right.
I couldn't not talk about the Master. I'm excited about that. I don't care how they handle it. I hope it's better than End of the World or whatever it was. World's End, End of Time, something
bad. Everything about that.
If they're gonna bring back, that's my only caveat, is if they're gonna bring back John Sims Master, you have to do it better.
No potions.
You have
no magic potions.
No, give him a proper regeneration into the Mistress. Into Missy.
Oh, interesting.
Because they could do that. They don't have to do that, but they could. And that would be rad, because that's kind of a. I don't know. Do they need to do it?
How did they do away with Sims Master?
He jumped back into the Time War with the High Council. He basically forced the High Council to go back to the Time War because they were trying to escape the Time War through him.
Interesting.
They implanted him with the sound of drums as a beacon so that they could time travel out of the Time War.
Okay.
And he's like, not on my watch. He kind of did his whole heroic moment, and he jumped back in and forced them all back into the Time War. And everything looked hunky-dory until Wilfred, or Willard, or what's his name? Donna Noble's grandpa.
Oh, yeah. He'll not 4 times? Or was it 3 times? I don't remember.
Yeah. Knocks 4 times, right.
Okay, that's interesting. So it wouldn't even be like a all that version of his master. It could be the master after that.
Right.
So I'm going to call, my initial prediction was, assuming they get both masters in the same story, they're going to work together and then screw each other over, because that's kind of what happens with the master. And if you got the master working with the master, it's going to happen. But I'm going to call it now that Missy kills Sims Master, causing him to regenerate into her. And that's how she regenerated.
I can totally see her doing that.
Yeah, I think that'd be very interesting.
That could be, because that's extremely Master too.
Yeah, just like, this version of me is not doing it. So you're going to become me now.
You're going to become me early.
Yeah.
So, I like that. I also liked the promo shot where, they framed it perfectly, but he looks a little bit like a war doctor version of the Master. He's got the scruff. He looks like he's kind of seen some crap.
Mm-hmm. I'd read somewhere, and I don't know where these people are getting this information, that Sims is kind of channeling. How did they put it? It's channeling his inner Delgado.
Oh boy!
So maybe we'll get a little
like he wasn't campy and over top when he did his own master.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get a little bit less wacky, a little bit more.
I'm okay with that.
Like,
I'm okay with that. I liked him when he was doing that whole like, this is not a joking face. This is a joking face. This is not joking face. Dreadlip.
yeah.
I mean, like, I liked that, but then they just never stopped with it. Like, I feel like Tennant's doctor evolved and Sim's master never did.
Yeah.
Because they only had him twice, so, you know, I suppose that's fair.
This would be his evolution, I imagine. It'd be good. All right. So this other thing we're going to talk about.
Okay. All right.
I'm very curious about how this will go, because I kind of know how you feel about the show.
Right.
And I have watched it. I've watched the whole season, obviously, but I've also watched a big chunk of the season twice now.
Really? Oh yeah, because Mel. Right?
Yeah, I was rewatching it with Melanie, and she didn't quite get to. I think we were 3 or 4 episodes from finishing the season with her, so I watched the majority of it twice. So, what are your thoughts? I'm trying to think of the best way to channel like your very succinct review for was it Two-Headed Nerd?
Two-Headed Nerd, cover to cover. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have big problems with this show, and I'm not in the minority. So I feel like I am kind of the standard review right now in terms of my opinion of it. But as time has gone on, like this is what I was alluding to at the beginning. It's like complaining about complaining. Like I've listened to a few podcasts where they review it, and I'm not sure they're being fair. So jumping back, how do I feel about the show? It's not my favorite. It's definitely my least favorite of the Netflix series so far. But that being said, I binged this thing like there was no tomorrow. I probably got through it way faster than I got through Luke Cage. So there is at least a watchability factor that I cannot deny, and I will not deny, because I did cruise through it and I did have the desire to keep going, even if I was hate watching this thing. Like, yeah, there maybe was a point where I started going, well, I don't know if I like this show, but I'm going to watch this thing to the end, you know, like, like, this is ridiculous, and I have to see how much more ridiculous it gets before I end. So, I mean, like, yeah, I did not love it, but I don't, you know, like the people who are calling it, I don't know, unwatchable or just totally boring. I don't think I agree with that. I don't think it was totally boring. I definitely had an enjoyment factor, even if I wanted to hate on it. You know, I don't know. And yeah, that even came up. That even came up in that cover to cover episode. But yeah, I did see it to the end, and a lot of people who are reviewing it right now, some of them didn't even make it past episode 6. I'm like, that's not fair. You can't do that. Can you? I mean, can you really watch 3 episodes of this thing, say it's trash, and call it a review? No, that's how you get Rotten Tomato reviews of Arrow season 3 that are like, it was so good. I got 100% fresh rating. That's how you get that. You watch 1 episode and you say, oh, it's a good episode. It's a good season.
Yep.
Fresh. Yep. It's fresh. No, it's not. I don't even know what season that was. 3, 4. They're wrong.
It's like all of them. Like all of them.
Arrow season, whatever it was, is awful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which one? Yeah,
the Damien Dark season. I don't even care what number it is. But that's not 100% fresh. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
No.
So, yeah. No, they just threw up a fresh rating because it was new. And the first episode wasn't total garbage. So, yeah. I don't feel like you can review it if you've only watched 3 episodes. So that's my initial impressions, long-winded and rambly as they are.
That does explain it, because I think this season, you know, Iron Fist, I think the first episode's real weak, and
yes,
it's sloppy
in a couple areas.
Yeah, Now I knew, because the word was getting out before it was even available on Netflix, that this thing was getting very bad reviews.
Right.
But I didn't look into any of the reviews. I was like, well, I'm going to watch it anyway, so why jade my potential opinion? And I was a little worried with the first episode. I was like, oh no, like this feels sloppy. There's exposition's kind of lazy, and it's kind of funny because I was like, it's been a while enough, long enough that I've forgotten names. What's his name? The brother of
Ward Meacham.
I was like, oh, and they set this Ward guy is like super cookie cutter, stereotypical, like business jerk. I'm like, this is gonna be the villain. I was like, oh, and it turned out he was my favorite character.
Okay, I found something out that's maybe a total aside, maybe not. Okay, so like thinking about how action was portrayed and whatnot, and how Finn Jones clearly was not super trained. Like he had done no fight choreography before this all started.
Okay.
Like so you can see it in that first episode for sure. And it gets a little better, but not a whole lot better. Ward Meacham has fight training.
Really?
That's irony. Yeah.
Wow.
That dude didn't have to do a lick of fighting.
No.
And he has some fight training.
Why? Well, weird.
And apparently the drunken master. I mean, I'm jumping just ahead, but that guy was heavily considered for the role of Iron Fist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like he got pretty far. Then they had that throwdown, and it was like, oh, well, we could have had. You guys are jerks. Yeah. You writers are jerks.
But for me, after first viewing of the series, after it got into second episode, I got into the second episode, and it hooked me more. And then as I went along, like I was into it, and it's like you said, like this is like I crushed this episode or this season. Like I flew through it. I binged it in a matter of days, as opposed to like even like Luke Cage or something. Like it took me a little while to get through it. So you're absolutely right. Like it's watchable. And, you know, despite what a lot of reviews said, at least for me, I found it very watchable. After I watched it the first time, well, in general, my impressions are, I think it's the weakest written of the Netflix Marvel series, but it's not my least favorite. I like Jessica Jones, but that one's kind of my least favorite because there was a lot of drag moments. And my first viewing of Iron Fist, I didn't really feel the drag like some reviewers apparently did. My second viewing of Iron Fist, a little bit different story. Started to feel the drag a bit, but I would agree feels like the weakest of the series. In terms of writing, it's I mean, that's where I went on my rant. Was like when I just took a step back from the series and I looked at what actually happens in it, which is a thing that I like to do when I'm done with the thing. Like, what actually happened here, so I can review it. And that's where I came up with my basically 3-point review, which I don't know if I should go into it now or later or what, but it's full of spoilers. So if you want to take it a little slower than that, I'm okay with that too. It's good though. It's solid, your review. I mean, yeah, I guess if you want, go for it. We're going to spoil the season anyway, but I'd say go for it, because it's not like we necessarily have to do a play-by-play. And I think some of your points,
well, they're specific to the writing, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm not hammering in on this guy's portrayal of Iron Fist. We could do a whole nother segment on the acting and who's the best actor. Ward Meacham. You know, like as far as characters go and whatnot and development. But here's my spoilery review. Nothing happens. No progression happens. When we start this thing, when we first meet Danny Rand, he kind of has control over the Iron Fist. He's gained the powers of the Iron Fist, and he doesn't have a costume. and he wanders into his family's old company, and so he's kind of he doesn't really do the Iron Fist. He's got some kung fu apparently, and at the end of the series, he actually gets worse at Iron Fist, like iron fisting, which is not what you think, internet. It's not what you think. He actually gets worse at it, like he's supposed to come out of Kunlun as like this master, and he comes out and he comes to New York. That's all it took. I show up in New York and I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm getting bad at this. Like my cheese all messed up. Apparently, something about sleeping in the park makes me bad at kung fu. And so he gets worse at it. He doesn't have a costume at the beginning. He doesn't have a costume at the end. He does not improve at all. He's the same. He's just like mediocre Iron Fist. He starts mediocre. He returns to mediocrity. So that's the first point. The second point is that there's this kind of underlying like threat that's happening. That is, well, no. Before I get into that, who's in charge of the building? Who's in charge of it? The Meachums, the family friends of the Rands. Like they're partners in crime, apparently. Yeah. So like they run the company together when the Rands are alive. So the Meachums are in charge of the company when Rand comes back. At the end, despite all of the drama that we get in the middle, and we're like, these guys need to be stopped. Guess who's running the show at the end? The Meachums are still in charge. The Meachums are in charge. The Meachums in charge. Nothing has changed. So what could possibly change in this? Well, we've got to have like a threat, right? Like something that threatens to tear everything apart. So enter the Hand. Ninjas. How could you screw that up? Okay, so there's the Hand ninjas, and they're there, and they're quietly behind the scenes like ninjas, you know? And so they're there, and I'd be like, here's where the real spoilers hit. Like, there's two factions of the Hand that we didn't know about. So we didn't know about this one faction of the Hand that's quietly behind the scenes. Later on, there's another faction of the Hand quietly behind the scenes. We didn't know about them. They each have leaders. They don't get along. There's this whole civil war of hands. Like the left hand's not speaking to the right hand. They don't know what's going on. And at the end, guess what? There's still two hands.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where they are. So guess what? They're back quietly behind the scenes again.
Yep.
No differently. The leaders are still there. They both disappeared. The Hand's still there. Rand doesn't have a costume, and the Meachums are still in charge. Nothing happened. It was entertaining to watch, but in the end, not a thing happened. One thing happened. They got ready for Defenders, and Danny got some shoes. And he got laid. Spoilers. He's a bad monk. He's a terrible monk. He just got done talking about how, well, I'm so celibate today. You could change that if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. Like it's totally
hard.
valid.
It's hard to defend. It's hard to defend the series when you look at it from that respect. Not that there isn't things that are worth enjoying in this. So I mean, like that's the thing. Is like I look at this series, and here's kind of my all encapsulating feeling about it is that it's like like I keep making the Iron Man comparison. It's like Iron Man 2 and 3. Okay, Iron Man 1 was awesome. Okay, so all the other Netflix shows were awesome, right? And I enjoyed all the other Netflix shows. And we get to the Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 of the Netflix series, which is Iron Fist. And I'm still going to enjoy it because Robert Downey Jr. is enjoyable. And it's an enjoyable world that they've set up. And there's things to enjoy in here. But really, the overall story, what I'm left with, isn't very good. There's good parts, but overall not my favorite. Like I still watched it. I still watched Iron Man 2. I still watched Iron Man 3, but they were no Iron Man 1.
Yeah. So. I mean, I found watching through it the first time, waiting for Danny to do something. Like at one point, there's even
anything.
There's even it's like an alternate, slightly more frustrating version of Luke Cage's reluctance to become a hero because he's just reluctant to it. Danny Rand is like the same, but backwards, totally opposite. Like he's the fist. He's going to be the Iron Fist, but he's not going to do anything logically. He's going to just irrationally and impulsively run into situations, get impatient, get angry. He can't use his fist unless he's getting beat once. He can't, but if he's angry, he can use it. But if he's too angry, he can't use it. Like it's kind of a mess. And he is, and this isn't for me on these series totally uncommon. He's the least interesting part of the series for me. But like my favorite one so far, I think, has been Luke Cage. And I feel the same about Luke Cage. Like I think he's a better written character, but he's also kind of the least interesting character to me.
Sure.
But the difference is like
he was more interesting in Jessica Jones because he's novel in that.
Yeah, you're right. But like they usually surround these characters that are like, they're the heroes. They're like kind of boring by nature. They're the good guys that do the good things, and that's not always the most exciting. But the writers surround them with fascinating villains and side characters and stuff like that, and interesting twists. And Iron Fist kind of lacked on that, I would say. For me, the draw, like once I was in it several episodes, the draw to keep coming back was the Meacham like family storyline. I almost wish somebody could do like a fan edit. I don't think you could make it work, especially towards the end, and get most of the Iron Fist stuff out of there and just give me a Meacham family series or feature length something, because I love that stuff. Ward Meacham became my favorite character, and watching through the season, I was kind of like surprised, and I was like, I bet nobody's going to guess that. And then I look online and everybody's like, Meacham, Ward's the best character. I'm like, oh, okay.
I know. I thought I was kind of surprised by that too, because it was like, I felt the same way. And yet it was like, who's going to agree with that? Because he's like, you're not supposed to like this guy, but he is. He's interesting, and he does make a progression.
Oh yeah,
like he comes through the muck and sees the other side, and actually becomes a better person. I don't think we can say that about Danny Rand.
No,
like I don't think he won at everything, sort of badly. Like he badly won at everything. Like he got everything he ever wanted, even the stuff he thought he wanted and didn't want, like the Iron Fist.
And in the long run fails at everything too.
Yeah. He's like the worst Iron Fist, and even Davos or whatever, he calls him out on it. He's like, you're the worst Iron Fist. And Danny's like, I don't know that Danny really refuted it. It's like, okay, maybe I'm bad at this.
And they kind of took the angle of Danny Rand being, because to a point it works with the setup a little bit. He was taken out of society essentially when he was like 10 or something,
right?
And basically became a monk. So in a way, it almost works. When he comes back, a big part of the problem is he's very childish, to the point where
they really played that up. Like he didn't have any development at all.
None.
No, you're literally stuck as a 10-year-old brain somehow.
But being trained to be a monk his whole life, like the angle of that's not training, that's child abuse, was kind of interesting, but that should still have developed him in some way, matured him in some way, like being a monk where they're just trained to be Zen. I guess I also like the angle of they're trained to be Zen, but really they're just what's the word? Repressing their anger and emotions. But I mean, people have said it's laughable, and it kind of is the way his character acts sometimes. My first watch through, sometimes I'd laugh, but it was kind of enjoyable. But my second watch through, Danny Rand's character is very hard to deal with. Where he's fighting, I think it was the Spider Lady. Well, I don't know what her character's name is.
Oh, God, yeah.
And she says something about, I can sense your fear. And he goes, no, you can't. It's like, what are you? Are you seriously still 10? No, you can't. No, you're not. No, I'm not.
Right. Yeah. That's not how human development works.
No. So that's
It's like they tried to mash up the Iron Fist and Big with Tom Hanks.
What if you take a 10-year-old and suddenly he's an adult man
Suddenly
with a
he's
glowing
the Iron
fist?
Fist, and he defeats the dragon in a cave.
Yeah, somehow, and then we'll tie it into the lights.
And they didn't even complete that. Like, this whole season is supposed to be basically an origin story. And I feel like they failed in that regard. Like, I have very little idea what his actual origin is, because all they would do is approach it in piecemeal in little flashbacks that weren't real flashbacks. Like, they were like little, like, and then they even ditched that whole thing. Like, they, at the very beginning, they do this kind of like, I don't know what to compare it to. Almost like Inception, kind of like the screen goes fuzzy and white, and he's having flashes of his parents and the whole thing. And then they just ditch that like four episodes later. Like, once he's out of the insane asylum or whatever, they're like, forget that.
Yeah,
we were doing something with that, but we don't know what we're doing with that, so never mind.
And they don't necessarily stop the flashbacks, but they ditch it being like an issue that he actually has to deal with, because it's like when he has a flashback, he's like, I don't know, convulsing in real life.
Yeah, like it takes him out of it.
But they do the flashbacks, but they hammer, and I understand it's a trauma, and I think they're trying to play on like this is his trauma, and a big arc of the season would be him getting over it, but it didn't really play it that well, and it just felt like they were hammering the same flashback scenes of the airplane, his parents in the airplane, over and over and over. It's like, if you want to do that many flashbacks, at least give us something new to look at, like different pieces of information. And in the end, there wasn't enough pieces of information to make how often the flashbacks happen worth it.
Right. There was no payoff, really. Mm-mm. Like, okay, we get it. Like, you told us this numerous times, and now we have to see it numerous times too. And I figured it would reveal something new, but it really didn't reveal anything. That he didn't just go ahead and tell one of the Meachums, like Joy. Yeah. Like, it was like, well, this is what happened if you didn't watch the flashbacks.
So, yeah, my second watch through, I don't know if it was, Danny was definitely less bearable the second time through. I was still fascinated by the Meachum family story. I think all three of them, I think Ward was great. The actress that plays Joy was pretty good. Joy's character's not, she doesn't get that much of an arc except for whatever they tried to shoehorn in that last episode, which is the last episode.
That's the most problematic part of her arc. Yeah.
But I thought she acted very well. Like, there was some good scenes with her, where she would, like the bit with the dad, and when she finally has to react to that, I thought she handled really well, because it's like, the actor's supposed to like make it real, even if it's something ridiculous as this comic book, sci-fi fantasy iron or martial arts thing. Like, she has to make it real, and I thought she did it well, because it's like, how would you react in that situation?
Right.
And then, what's his name? The dad. I thought he was good.
Yeah, I forget his name. Yeah.
And he made me laugh. His performance made me laugh, but he just kind of come across. It was laughable, but for me, it worked still. It came across as like unhinged, Yeah.
Which I think he was supposed to. It kept reminding me of the Lazarus Pit for whatever reason. Like, whatever they did to him, I kept thinking, that was one thing that took me out of it a little bit, is that I kept thinking Arrow, I kept thinking Batman, I kept thinking Lazarus Pit. Like, whatever they've done to him, it's deteriorating him, and it gets worse as time goes on.
In the early episodes of the season, Melanie had made mention of Arrow while watching it. You got the rich kid come back to the city, and flashbacks to where he had been and all this, and I guess some of the fighting. That's another thing, and you touched on the choreography and stuff. Some of the fight scenes were okay, but I found particularly scenes with Danny, I was kind of disappointed, because it felt like it felt floaty, like there was no impact to any of the hits. It was
Yes.
and not necessarily.
In fact, they cut away. Like, they even cut away from the impact, so it would be bloodless.
Yeah, and and which is odd because then during like the Meacham storyline, like there's some pretty brutal violence and gore.
Oh man, the stabby stabberson.
Oh yeah, and when Ward comes in and his dad's taking the hammer to those corpses.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Whoa,
brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fight scenes felt there wasn't a lot of impact. And, there was a lot of spinning and stuff. And even Daredevil, like, there's a lot of spinning to the way his style. Like, you do a lot of, like, little quick jump flips. I don't know what you call them. Where you do a jump
Right.
flip and, like, land on somebody. But in Daredevil, it, like, there was impact to the hits. And the fights, that's part of, like, what made it so stand out is, like, the story in Daredevil was the plot was solid, but also, like, the fight scenes were fantastic. And you would think there would be a bigger focus on putting forth some fantastic fight scenes in Iron Fist, the one that specifically revolves around martial arts.
I think that's the number one thing that created disappointment for me, is that I had been looking forward to this because it sounded like the most unique and different of these Netflix offerings.
Mm-hmm.
We had like Luke Cage is basically a brawler. He doesn't have to have like a specific fight style, but his fight choreography was better than Iron Fist, and all he does is just like come in brute force and just swing, and like that's all he needs to do because that's his power set.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Daredevil, and he's basically raised a boxer and then trained by sticks. So you see a little bit of his boxer action. He's very like MMA style.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a ninja style, but he's more MMA ninja kind of thing in the way that he fights. And then Jessica Jones she was just basically the same as Luke Cage in the way that she approached things. She didn't have flourishes or anything. She had super strength.
She broke a lot of padlocks with her hands.
Yeah, broke a lot of padlocks. Yeah. In fact, she didn't do a lot of hand-to-hand combat because she didn't know if she could control that kind of bit.
Yeah.
And so that made a different kind of tension in the action. Like, how is she going to solve this without just basically smashing this person's face in?
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to like Iron Fist. I was really excited about it because it was different. All of these other things are very grounded in reality, and Iron Fist had this kung fu and this almost mystical nature to it. And then we got what we got, and the kung fu part of it and the mystical nature of it. And I actually kind of like this, but it was played for laughs a little bit.
Yeah.
Anybody that he tells about Kunlun just looks at him like he's crazy. And I kind of love that. I kind of love the consistency in that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like stepping out of it, like that frustrates me. That disappoints me. Like, that's what I was looking forward to about the series. And then they spun it on me. They spun it well enough, but I'm like, that's what I wanted to see. And you just stole that. You stole that from the plot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a backseat, like, real hard.
Yeah.
And there were a few episodes that they tried to do some... The episode with the spider lady, I still don't know her name.
Right.
That whole thing, that was the episode directed by the RZA, and I didn't realize it the first watch through, but the second watch through, I caught his credit, and I was like, that totally makes sense. Like,
If you were going to do one,
and
that would be the one for him.
And then later when they go to China, which is weird. I don't know, like looking back on it, I don't even know what they were doing. They were basically trying to find Madame Gao, right? Yeah,
is that the whole reason they went?
Yeah. Well, and I guess he wanted to see because he knew the name of the city, but that was the main reason, was to find her. And
you're right.
And they even, before they left, they cracked a joke about like, well, what are you going to do if you find her? Just, abduct her and bring her back? That's going to make an awkward plane ride. But that's what they did. Like, they found her, and then all of a sudden they're back in New York or wherever in the dojo, and it's like that.
Oh, they didn't even do a thing with the plane ride. Like, they're just home.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that episode, there were some decent fights. Not they didn't
I was
always
to say, worst part is that's where, for me, that's where the season kind of peaked in terms of quality. Like it was really good. Like it started pretty and then it got better, hit a point, and then it was like,
And there's kind of
I'm doing a thing with my hand. I'm doing a bonus hand jive that nobody can see.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. We're recording audio and you're like making sounds to accompany your visual thing you're doing.
Yeah, no, it went up and then it came down and it kind of floated down.
Yeah.
Like in quality.
There's an interesting formula to these Netflix Marvel series so far that I guess I can see it in Daredevil season 1 as well, but it's definitely Luke Cage and Daredevil season 2, where it's almost like the season is broke into 2 parts, and often and in the case of Luke Cage, it's literally like 2 main villains, you know,
right? Yeah, and in Iron Fist, it's literally 2 hands.
You're right, though.
On one hand and on the other hand.
Yeah, and I can't help but. I was a little disappointed once we got to the other hand. I mean, it's not bad, but it's like, I don't know. It's a little disappointing. Yeah. I mean, I had intention to come in here and be like,
you were going to defend this thing.
Not as bad. I was going to be a defender. It's not as bad as everyone
well played.
says. And I don't think it's as bad as everyone says, because after I watched it the first time, like I said, I didn't read reviews of it.
Right.
After I watched it, I started reading reviews, and some of there are brutal reviews, and I was like, listen, it's
right.
It's weak, but I don't think it's any weaker than the last, than much of Arrow.
It's better than that season of Arrow.
Yeah.
When you made that comparison, it was like, no, I think it was season 3. I don't know.
Well, it was sitting. I mean, I didn't
season
even know
3
they
of
did
Arrow was so bad.
TV Rotten Tomatoes for TV shows, but it was sitting at like 13%, and I was like, well, what about Arrow? Because I definitely put this above Arrow. And I looked over at Arrow, and yeah, every season 100%. Of course, it didn't have that many reviews, but still, like, are you kidding me?
It was clear that they were just reviewing like that first episode, and then they just forgot it was on Rotten Tomatoes after that. I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
You can't claim this whole season was good.
Or they let the bad taste that the first episode left I don't know. A lot of the really brutal early reviews were very focused on some of the, what's the word? I guess social elements or political elements of it. The whitewashing
in
thing.
Iron Fist. Oh, so the stuff
Fist.
that came out before. The stuff that came out beforehand. That basically, when was this character created? I mean, like, this is an issue that was from the 60s, the 70s. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't feel like I understand this is an issue, but it's a separate issue. I mean,
yeah,
when we review things, we need to look at what we get.
There were a lot of early, like I said, especially the early reviews of it were real hung up on that fact. And that was something where I was like, initially I was like, oh, that doesn't seem right. And then you were like, but, because I've never read, I should have said this at the beginning, I've never read a single Iron Fist comic in my life. But you were like, but, I mean, it's an issue from the comics. He's white in the comics. I was like, oh. I was like, that almost makes it more complicated because people aren't going to,
Right.
So that was an issue. I was like, you know what? Me complaining or not complaining about it isn't going to fix it. I just want to see this show. I'm not going to even worry about that. I don't see color, but so that was something I set aside. But there was also like one review. It was a lot of one review pointed out, and this is an interesting point, but not necessarily enough for me to bash the season over. Was, Daredevil has a very strong theme about people that get left behind with or get slipped through the legal system, and Jessica Jones has the theme of there's the whole creepy killjoy sexual abuse theme and all that,
right, coming back from domestic abuse basically.
Yeah, and Luke Cage has the Black Lives Matter type theme, and then this one, like, they're like, rich guy comes back and blah blah blah, business and all this, and it's like, and they're,
and all he ever does is win.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point to think about. It's not, it's, you know, it's interesting. And I hadn't really thought about that. And it kind of makes the few times that they do kind of try to shoehorn a social political issue in with, and they do it several times with business. They try to play the theme of, you know, corrupt business and businesses doing, like the whole thing with Danny making them sell that medicine at cost. That's interesting. But I mean, it was there, but it wasn't really fully developed. It didn't really weave into the very theme of the story. The theme of the story
it didn't feel like benevolence so much as Danny not understanding how business works.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, yes, he was doing the right thing, but it didn't feel like that really. It felt like, oh, well, he doesn't understand.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, might be splitting hairs, but he was doing the right thing, but it wasn't from a place of like fighting against a world that consistently does the wrong thing, or a system trying to change a system that consistently does the wrong thing. It was doing the right thing out of naivete, you know?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I said that fancy.
Yeah, when he had that naivete all throughout, too, where he's like, well, it was like he was accidentally condescending to homeless people. Just like, he just wanders and he's like, oh, people probably think we're the same.
Yeah, he was.
It's because you are. Neither one of you are wearing shoes, and you're both sleeping in the park. Right now, you're the same. Danny, Netflix, Danny.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that was awful. And then the guy dies, and he's just like, oh, I better go take control of my company now. Oh, crap. I don't have any homeless friends to hang out with anymore. Maybe. That's maybe a little much, but
I didn't think he did.
Like he didn't really mourn this guy at all.
No.
Like he had this connection with this guy, sort of, not a good connection, but like this guy
fed him. He gave him food.
Yeah. Yeah. And Danny, like, it was like, well, this is part of my backstory now.
He was super condescending. That one line rubbed me the wrong way right away. I was like, you like laughed at this guy because you're like, oh, you think I'm like you. No.
Oh, we're the same.
I don't wear shoes and I'm homeless, but I'm not you.
Yeah, no, I have an iPod, even though you have a real phone.
Yeah, you have an iPhone from probably this year. I have an iPod that somehow has managed to hold charge for 15 years.
Yeah, and all of the data. Like those songs wouldn't be totally corrupted and it wouldn't work. Yeah. And how? Yeah, I don't know.
God, I said I wasn't gonna.
How do you charge things in a mystical dimension?
That's what I was wondering. The Iron Fist, maybe? I don't know. He didn't know he could heal with it, so
he just folds the fist up like to a mini USB, or I guess it would be the really janky old 7 pins or whatever. Like, that's a charge sound. He just fists it. He just fists everything. That's how he handles things in the New York of the Marvel universe. You like where aliens just drop things in the middle of the New York. He just fists it.
He fists everything.
Yeah.
He just fists everything.
Hey, watch out, Joy Meacham. Here comes the Iron Fist. In your New York building.
So
moving on. That devolved.
Wow.
Rapidly.
I'm just gonna let you go.
Mel's not even here. Woof.
Normally, yeah, she almost diffuses by maybe it's deflection. She takes some of the crazy and like it's spread around.
Yeah.
Now, apparently it's you.
It's all me right now. The fists. What else did we like?
Okay, I have one more disappointment other than the entire last episode. One thing I was kind of disappointed, and this is maybe more promotional fault of the promotion, but because I had read that article that RZA was directing an episode, and that early hip hop was going to play a big role in the show, because that's what the article said, that hip hop music was going to play a big role in the show itself.
Well, stranger things have been said. Because it was like totally ripping off a Stranger
It really was.
Things
There was
theme.
The arpeggio, the arp. Yeah, it definitely was. But I was like,
Well, wasn't it like the opening theme was kind of Stranger Things synthy, right?
that's the problem.
Like that, and I don't have a problem with that. That was great music, but yeah, not hip hop, really.
No,
I mean, like
he occasionally listens to hip hop, which also it wouldn't have been early '90s hip hop, which maybe I misread the article, but that's what I was led to believe. It would have been early 2000s hip hop, which is a way different thing.
Right. It was like coming out of that whole Vanilla Ice MC Hammer thing. Like that's when rap started getting real again, and less gimmicky.
But yeah, so I don't know where that was coming from, but whatever. So I was a little disappointed in that.
Yeah, good point.
The score wasn't bad. No, sometimes it was very, very Stranger Things, very synthy, which I'm fine with, but it wasn't. But it also wasn't consistent. And this show, every Marvel Netflix series has had, it's a very unique and definite style onto itself. Daredevil a little less so, but it still kind of does. But Jessica Jones and Luke Cage both had very definable visual style and tone and music.
Like you could lighting would change and color would change based on what was happening.
Yeah, and like you could say Jessica Jones was like a detective film noir type story, something like The Private Eye. And Luke Cage was like the blaxploitation 70s action type thing. And what was Iron Fist? Like that wasn't.
It was
Kung
supposed
Fu.
to be a kung fu movie, but it wasn't. No.
RZA was trying to make a kung fu movie, but
yeah, that was as close as we got.
I mean, I guess maybe if they were going for an 80s American action movie, you've got drugged up corporate guys, and I don't know, but they didn't. If that's what they were after, they didn't commit to that either. And it's okay to do like something that it's its own thing, but it just didn't feel like it committed to any certain one element.
Yeah. We had multiple bad guys. Like the Hand wasn't bad enough on their own. We had to have two hands. And then if those two weren't bad enough, then we had to have Harold Meacham, who was kind of like Solomon Grundy. Like dude was a zombie that just got progressively more bizarre and more violent.
Yeah.
No, I feel like this thing got maligned because like Netflix just kept improving, and then this one dropped off. And I get kind of conspiratorial about this one because I'm like, did they do that on purpose so that Defenders will look awesome?
Oh yeah. You know,
like if we're gonna fail, we can't have our version of the Avengers be the one that's the bad one. So what if Iron Fist's not as good as the other ones? Because I mean, all we need to have an Iron Fist series so that we can have the Defenders. Like we don't have to it doesn't have to be as good as the other ones. People are still going to come because everybody's loved Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. That's like 3 out of 4 is not bad.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point because like the Marvel movies, I don't know if, we're past this point now or if maybe people, just think there hasn't been a bad one yet. Although people gripe about specifically Iron Man 2 a lot. I gripe about Avengers 2 a lot. But for a long time,
a lot of people do. A lot of people actually do because it was kind of hodgepodgey and yeah.
And for a long time, like every time a new movie come out, be like, is this the one that's going to sink Marvel? Is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the bad one? And
right.
I could see maybe them anticipating something like that with the series. And yeah, you have a very interesting point. I mean, Netflix is definitely like playing their own game. Like they're not really beholden to anyone's rules, so they can do what they want. And if that's what they think will benefit them in the long run, I could see it as a possibility.
Playing the long game, right?
And doing something. I mean, they're working on a Punisher series now, so
right,
like doing something like this where like they're different series, but they're kind of not like
Yeah,
I could see them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like in that mindset, like I'll start to rationalize things. It's like, well, this first season doesn't have to be any good if Iron Fist is interesting in the Defenders. Mm-hmm. If he's interesting in the Defenders and people clamor for more, then we can have a season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do all the things we wanted to do, which there's some pretty cool stuff like hinted at in the series that we like, they show that World War II footage of basically a proper Iron Fist doing proper Iron Fist stuff with a full on costume and everything.
With two fists.
With 2 fists. Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I thought we were going to get maybe by the end of this first season is an Iron Fist that could use both. It's not just Iron Fist. It's like, he is the Iron Fist, so he can use his whole body as a weapon, not just one glowing hand.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I wrote down a couple of things that I did like, and we already talked about Ward Meacham, which I think was the standout character and the standout actor of the whole crew. I think Harold Meacham did an all right job, but he had such a bizarre he had bizarre lines. He had a bizarre character. So, like, who were you going to get that was going to sell that?
And I could even
think
see
he did pretty well.
I could even see people saying they didn't think he was acting well, but I mean, I thought it was fine. Like I said, I did chuckle at it, but it seemed appropriate. He was demented, so yeah.
Right, exactly. And then Madame Gao, I mean, like that gal. I mean, she's playing basically a stereotype, but she's playing it better than anyone could ever expect her to play it.
Yeah.
You know? Like she's basically a dragon lady. But I mean, like she just owns the scene. When she walks into a room, you are watching her.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since Daredevil season 1. So like she's still nailing it. And then I put down Colleen Wing in the first half. Like up until we find out that she's, I mean, this is a huge spoiler, but up until we find out that she's part of the second hand, she's the second hand wing, the kind you could find at a secondhand store. I don't know. She was really compelling, and she was by far the best martial artist at first, you know, like the first half of the series for sure. Like of the cage fight scenes were interesting.
Oh yeah.
She was an interesting character.
Yeah, I thought she was super interesting, and the big twist kind of undermines a little bit of what seemed interesting about her.
And kind of calls into question everything that we learned about her. Like, if she was in line with the hand the whole time, what did she need to do cage fights for, or even start a dojo? Yeah. Other than it's a training camp. It's like a launching pad for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then the other thing which we already talked about was basically the watchability, the bingeability of the series. I mean, I can't deny that. I flew through it. It was easy to watch, even if it was popcorn brain candy. You know, I enjoyed it. So I think what this suffers for, this suffers from score creep, which is a term in slam poetry where as the night goes on, you get higher and higher scores. So you've got Daredevil. That got a pretty good score. Everybody was like, oh, wow, this is way better than the Affleck movie.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like that was a low bar to hurdle. And then it was like, well, I wonder what the next thing's going to be. So Jessica Jones was like, whoa. A lot of people didn't even know what Jessica Jones was. So they were like, oh, wow, this is really well written. Well, yeah, we adhered pretty heavily to the original stuff with a few deviations for the sake of television storytelling, and then Daredevil just doubled down on what was good about the first season, and then Luke Cage showed us something. You know, I mean, like it just kept getting better. We suffered from score creep. Our expectations as the viewer were inflated to a degree where we were never going to be happy with this. And then there was the social justice warrior element of things that was already going to make us feel bad. And then the critics came out and told us it was bad. And so all these things just stacked up. I don't think it's as bad as Arrow season 3.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're exactly right with the score creep, because it's not as good as the other Marvel Netflix series. Better than a lot of other TV series. And when it comes down to it, it's still a
really
TV
good
TV show. And yeah, I'd say it's better than several other shows. Yeah.
I didn't expect to come out defending this thing, but I've just gotten so tired of hearing people that did not watch the whole thing say how bad it was that I'm like, no, come on, listen. Like, I watched all of of Lost. I mean, this is at least as coherent as that.
Controversy.
They didn't even hot take. This makes at least as much sense as Lost.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's glowing praise, but come on.
It was consistent and followable.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Melanie wants to continue watching it, I'll still have her finish the series. I'm sure Melanie's reaction to it's been kind of interesting. Not super thrilled, but she hasn't been like slamming it as we've been watching it. And
well, that's a good sign, I would say.
Yeah. So my impression of what she thinks at the point which we're at on her viewing anyway is, I guess, a little like, give or take, like,
Are you at the peak? For me, the peak was episode 6 and 7. Like, it was getting increasingly better at that point.
The next episode, the episode she has next, is where you get the hand twist, where it starts with,
oh yeah, that's where it started to go down,
where it kind of takes the season takes its turn, like the second part of the season, like we mentioned with the other series, where it's a 2-part season kind of.
And this was my other point of contention that I didn't get into, which is, well, I mean, I sort of got into, but it's like Danny can't handle rejection, or he can't handle being lied to so badly that he just can't even kung fu anymore.
Yeah. That's, I mean, ultimately, that's
I just can't even anymore. I just can't even.
That's his weakness. Or
being lied to
a little, or
right.
Being
if tired. I can't focus at all.
Yeah.
I'm just my if I can't focus, man, that's it. This fist is not gonna glow.
I mean, I enjoyed the stuff in the mental institution when he got locked away. I thought that stuff was interesting.
Right.
There's some like nuggets of good writing. It's just overall it didn't really come together, and there's some nuggets of kind of bad writing. So
right, the good nuggets didn't ever lead to anything huge.
Yeah,
like they didn't really ever pay out, and then the bad ones were just so glaring. Yeah,
I think it's funny. I think you ended up defending this show more than you expected going into this review or this discussion, and I ended up trashing it more than I expected, because I thought we'd kind of have an interesting little clash of, like, you were more, no, you're like those reviewers, but no, you were more on the side of, like, nah, it's not that good, and I was like, hey, it's kind of entertaining. But that's not really the way it worked out. We just kind of...
Well, that's the thing. I would concede that it's entertaining. I would also say entertaining does not equal good.
That's true.
Like, I think that's the thing we're running into in pop culture right now, is that we have people that will defend things that are not good, like Suicide Squad. That thing is not good. Will I concede that it's entertaining? I suppose. Yeah, but there's entertainment to be had. I wasn't thoroughly entertained, but I can concede that it could be entertaining and that you could have a good time watching that show.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have bothered with it in the first place.
Yeah.
But is it good? I stand my ground that is not good.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
And that's kind of how I feel in this one. This is not good. And I guess the thing that makes it worse is the potential that it had. It had a lot of potential, and I had high hopes, and that's my fault. That's not their fault.
I mean, after Daredevil, the first season of Daredevil came out and kind of wowed a lot of people. I was going to say everybody, but really, no, there's always somebody who's like, not me. But
right. I never thought that'd be good.
When it came out and got praise and, like, it turned out to be pretty good, then looking at the lineup of characters they were going to do series for next, Iron Fist was kind of the one I was most excited for. I was like, I want to see some kung fu action. That's what I want to see. But it just didn't work out that way. It didn't work out.
When it was kind of on the wish list of characters that you never thought you'd see, because he's not he's not like a Avenger. I don't know if he's ever been in the Avengers, you know. I think maybe later on he is, but like you don't think Avengers when you think of Danny Rand and the Iron Fist. At least you didn't. And so it was like, oh my God, we're going to get an Iron Fist. That's incredible. Luke Cage, Iron Fist, we're going to get Heroes for Hire. And I guess that becomes another point of disappointment for me is like, I don't see this Danny Rand and that Luke Cage being friends at all.
Yeah, that's one thing I was trying to picture. I was like, I can't see a team up between them. It doesn't make sense.
They're like the ultimate buddy cops, you know, like they're the ultimate bromance comic book series. And I don't see them being friends at all.
Yeah.
Like, what common ground are they going to have? Whatever. And they don't even have that Heroes for Hire thing going where they're like, we really need to make some money. like, no, Danny Rand can just pay our bills.
He doesn't. Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh,
this Danny Rand.
You remember that building you bought that Colleen?
For Colleen?
Yeah. How about one of the other floors in that building?
Yeah. Let's just do that.
Oh, and somebody else's complaint that about Colleen Wing, there was kind of complaints that her being there doesn't fix the whitewashing issue and this and that. And then furthermore, that in the comics, I mean, of course, this is in the actually, in the comics, you know,
technically, as we push our glasses up,
he's generally more associated with Misty Knight, and and that's something I less so than Luke Cage. I could not envision him being associated with Misty Knight as she is in Luke Cage.
Right?
Wow. So interesting. But
they're gonna have to take some shifts. So that this works. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it because it's going to deviate from the comics. It has to.
All right, come on, we're in.
This is awesome. We're in the Grawlix studios.
Look, it's a plate of Mel's Hot Biscuits. I've heard about those.
Oh my God, check it out. Jesse and Randy's beard oil. I didn't know you can buy that in buckets. Well, that Sam Club's membership is really paying off.
Okay, let's get in their computer and drop this promo.
Okay, let's do it.
We're the Roman Podcast, and in the future, we're sneaking a promo on the Grawlix show.
Okay, seriously.
Seriously. Here we go.
I'm Roman LeBeau.
And I'm Rob Gast.
And we're from the Roman Podcast. We're just two Canadian guys getting together once a week to put our own spin on weird stories and trending news.
That's right. You can get our show every Wednesday night on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, the Laughable app, and of course, here on the EMC Podcast Network.
Okay, I think we got it. Put that on their show. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Hang on. While I'm in their computer, I'm just going to update their comic book pull list for the next few months.
What are you adding?
Captain Canuck, of course.
Nice.
No letters on our letters page. We'll have letters coming. I know we will. But if you want to send us letters, you can email us at letters@grawlixpodcast.com with feedback. And this feels awkward because I'm looking up like the phone number as I'm doing this. For feedback, and if you want to say hi, you want to maybe you thought Iron Fist was the best, and Danny Rand is a hero that you look up to, and maybe
like I had a lot of people that did like it, so they're out there. You guys, like, let us know. I know you're out there. You're on my Twitter feed.
There's potential for even the position of, like, Rich, essentially, I mean, he wasn't really the CEO, but essentially CEO who wants to do the right thing. But
what, Iron Man?
Yeah.
What,
you're right.
Batman?
Yeah, you're right. Never mind. It's been done.
Wait, it can be done well? Yeah. Unfortunately, the 1% can be a good hero. If they're written well.
Oh, man. Well, tell that to DC. Get their movie people writing a good Batman.
Yeah, it's fair.
Oh no, I've fallen into just general DC.
Man, we didn't even get into that. Like, we could go on a tirade of what's coming up in the summer that we are and are not ready for.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That could be a whole nother show.
There's a lot of summer coming, so yeah. Yeah, maybe that will be better.
Maybe that's next month, huh?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, actually. It's a pretty good idea. It'll be a little closer to the movies coming out and stuff, so that'd be a good discussion for then.
One of them will have already come out, probably. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy will be that first weekend in May.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm expecting to enjoy that.
I am too, but I'm also cautiously optimistic on that because sophomore slump is a real thing.
That's true. It's a good point. If you want to talk to us or leave a voice message about sophomore slump, call our Google Voice number at 559-426-6427 or 559-4-COMICS, and you can leave us a message. We'll play it on the show. Just don't cuss at us too much.
Yeah. Well, we'll even talk about the freshman 15 if you want.
Or
what did juniors have? Did juniors have anything other than a junior Whopper?
Junior, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and what's his name?
Yeah, that one. Well, DeVito, yeah, and twins.
Well,
like that wasn't confusing.
Hand in hand.
Yeah, and they were sequels. They were. Yeah. Let us know.
This has been Randy. People probably think we're the Grawlix.
We're not worthy. We're Grawlix. We suck.
Thank you for listening to the Grawlix Podcast. The Grawlix Podcast is a production of the Electronic Media Collective and Vorpal Arrow Studios. For more Grawlix Podcasts, check out GrawlixPodcast.com. Also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube, ElectronicMediaCollective.com, Facebook.com/GrawlixPodcast, Twitter.com/GrawlixPodcast, all the .com/all the Grawlix Podcasts. I was trying to find an Iron Fist quote, but there's none on IMDb.
Oh no!
Yeah,
not even from Night Nurse, who should have her own series.
Oh man, so she's the big thread, right? She's the big thread on these.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, really. It's her series,
and I find her. She could be cheesy, but I find her very enjoyable, and I like Rosario Dawson.
Yes, I like her too.
I like her very much. So, I'm always thrilled when she pops up in these things. And she's a smaller role in Jessica Jones, but otherwise a fairly sizable role, particularly in these last two series, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, like a major character role.
Oh, yeah. She was maybe, I don't know, she was more major in Luke, probably, but...
Yeah, because I would say
only
because
barely.
She became a love interest, but otherwise,
right.
She was in the series... as much, maybe even a little less than she was in Iron Fist. It's hard to say, but
yeah.